Well, now the good story.
Well, that story's over.
Hit the dump button on this one.
Yeah, come on.
Where do you live? There's just a bat.
In a bat cave.
In a bat cave? Yeah.
I live in South Russell, Ohio, so it's pretty country.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So it's near Chagrin Falls, but the country part of that
Okay.
part of the state. So
I live over in Cleveland, and I've never seen a bat in my life, so like that's...
It's seen you though.
Curious. It's
with its voice.
Yeah.
echolocation type deal. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks for having us, Will.
I didn't do the intro, so welcome to Green and Gold Radio. I'm your host, William Plavin Masters, and we're here with the two VIPs of the school, Mr. Stepp and Mr. McKenna. How you guys doing?
I am doing awesome. The last day of school, there are 2 days of the year that I love. One of those days is Christmas Eve. The second day is the last day of school.
Yeah.
The last day of school is the best. So I'm doing great today. So
I'm also doing great. Last day of school energy is it's just something that you don't get in any other walk of life.
Oh,
So
for sure. You got dunked
joy
on this morning.
everywhere.
Yeah,
It was an attempted dunk that did not succeed. I stole the ball.
yeah, I did not get dunked on. I did dunk on Aiden Buchanan. So
The boys were a little too obvious with their dunk strategy. Antonio Bolin was just trying to like saddle up next to me, and there was like 7 students, so it was a little too obvious. They need to work on their subterfuge.
you're gonna be more stealthy.
Hide behind a corner or something.
Something.
Instead
Don't travel in like groups of 10.
Yeah.
Plus, I told them I invented dunking, so
Yeah.
dunking was like really hot about 12 or 13 years ago in the senior hallway by Mr. Allen's room. Like, dudes were getting dunked on in between every single period. I had a similar experience to you, actually, where a teacher walked out to scold the students, but I was the one who had done the dunk. And so it was uncomfortable for all of us.
I've been yelled at several times by adults in this community who, when I'm doing childish things, and so whatever, that's fine. You work in a school for the joy.
You need a little bit of childish nature.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so let's start it off like this. A lot of kids have zero clue what you guys do, in all fairness. Can you tell us, like, as of right now, not next year, but this year, what do you guys, like, what's your whole deal?
I'm trying to figure out what my whole deal is myself, Will. You know, you guys are about to blow this open. So
Exclusive.
what do I do between food and naps? You want to know what we do now?
What do you do now?
What do I do now? Well, as the principal, so this is going to be so boring. Be ready to fast forward this, kids. So the general like hierarchy of a school, schools have a president, which is generally the CEO, the chief executive officer, and the president is really responsible for the mission, vision. That's rhymed. The mission, vision, and values of the institution, and kind of instilling that culture throughout the school community. And so obviously that's a very important job. The principal is the COO, or Chief Operating Officer. And so the principal's responsibility is to take that mission, vision, and value and to make sure that it is operating throughout every facet of the school on a daily basis. And so the way that the roles work together is very, very important.
Gotcha. Mr. Stepp,
I would
know-
describe it a little differently in terms of what I do. Like Mr. McKenna, it's funny, when I was a younger teacher, with younger teacher friends, we would talk about people with quote-unquote real jobs because, you know, except for like the first 2 years where I didn't even really want to be in education, it was just something that kind of worked out so that I could be employed. I didn't love school those 2 years, but then once I fell in love with school, there's years and days where you're going to school and there's years and days when you're going to work. So like the pandemic years would be years where you're going to work. Like there's not as much joy as what's natural in a school. Mr. McKenna is a lot smarter than me when it comes to like business stuff because he's had what I would call real jobs. Not insulting, like, you know, getting to be a teacher is fun. Like I'm an adult who's never left school, essentially. So the way I would describe my job is that As a father of 3, my goal every day is to be the kind of adult in the building that I would want my own kids to have in their school building. And so to say what I do every day would be kind of long-winded and boring because it depends on what needs to get done that day. And now that my job has changed and I work with students and adults, my mindset has changed. Again, I did not think of administrative roles this way the first time I was an administrator, and I feel like I apologize for that year profusely because I didn't like the person that I was or the person that I was trying to be. But now that I've had a lot more experience in the role, I also want to be the kind of adult that I would want my wife to have working in her school, So the jobs are weird and they're crazy. When you're a student or a teacher, your day is very routine. Like, what is happening at 11 o'clock because it's what happens at 11 o'clock every day. To Mr. McKenna's point, we serve the needs of the community. So whatever the community needs on a given day is what we're doing that day.
Gotcha. Speaking of needs of the community, have you guys seen the meme of Mr. McKenna's face, like, plastered on LeBron and Mr. Kubaki?
Oh, yeah.
Dwayne Wade. That's my favorite.
They gave us a snow day.
Oh, yeah. Remember?
That was John Schultz, man. I was like, I don't know if we need a snow day, but congrats on the creativity. We'll throw a snow day out.
Yeah. I absolutely loved those. Do you think you guys are going to have one of those types of memes in the next year or two?
God willing. I want as many memes of me as possible.
Can only be so lucky.
When I was a young St. Edward student, I thought success for me will be based on the number of memes that are created for me on platforms that didn't exist at that time, but I was very forward-thinking. So,
a friend of mine from my last school, when we were young teachers, we would compete over how many times we were in the school paper. So that's how old I am. Memes were also not a thing at that time. So
so that meme, and this is not a joke, holds a particular place in my heart because when my brother and I were really young, we collected baseball cards, basketball cards. I was really into basketball, and we would get our school photos from school and like the sleeve of like school pictures, and we would cut our heads out, and then we would paste them onto like basketball cards of real people. So it would be like my head on like an athlete's body. And my brother, no kidding. So I sent him that. And I was like, how about this? Like, my life has come full circle. And he found one of me with my head on, I had put it on Jackie Robinson's body. And my brother still had it. And he took a picture and he sent it to me. And I was like, seriously, this has come full circle for me. Yeah.
I would like to lay out a challenge for our tens and tens of listeners right now. I think it would be cool for the creatives who are listening to get in the mix on making like really quality memes and turning them into NFTs that maybe we could be selling at an auction or something like that.
St. Ed's NFTs. I like that.
NFTs.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord, that's a good idea.
Next level.
So, I mean, what do you guys want to do with the culture at Ed's next year? Do you guys have any like big changes you want to do? Do you have anything you want to develop or maybe put in the works? I mean,
that's obviously a big question. So, obviously our roles are transitioning a little bit. My role will transition slightly. Mr. Steps is obviously going to be a transition. There's change in schools every year, regardless of leadership changes. But I think what we are really focused on is how do we take all the things that anybody loves about St. Ed's right now and continue to enhance those things and develop those things. And any places where we're challenged, and make sure that we're trying to address those challenges. So like a big challenge that's going to be a focus of mine is affordability. And how do we make sure that St. Ed's is a place that can be affordable for generations of kids? If I were 20 years younger, I don't know that I could have afforded to go to St. Ed's. And so for me, that's something that's really close to my heart. We can have all of the best programs in the world, and all of the best teachers in the world, and we can have the greatest campus in the world. And if no kid can actually afford to come to school here, none of that matters. So all of those things only matter if we're actually able to get it to young people and help them develop. And so that is going to be a huge focus in terms of what I'm doing. And I think one of the important, the thing that I'm most excited about in terms of Mr. Stepnowski taking over the principal's role is anything that you guys as students have probably loved or appreciated about your experience. He's either been the architect of or a huge part of. And so you guys are just, it's just going to get better for you. At least that's the hope. We're gonna try to make it better.
Yeah.
So not that it's bad, but we always want to grow positively every year.
I think the biggest thing that's been on my mind is how we continue to not only meet the goals that we set for each other in this community, but continue to strive to exceed those goals. And I think when you think about the changes that had to take place due to COVID, some of those changes led to, I think there's ways where we can be there for each other, remembering that we're coming out of COVID. So where are there more opportunities to be together doing things? Where are there more opportunities to hold ourselves accountable? I think there was like a little bit of I don't know about you guys, but there was kind of like an existential funk of like, why are we doing any of this during COVID times that I think we're still shaking off. So how do we support each other? How do we hold each other accountable to, not only meet the expectations of what St. Ed's calls of us, but exceed those expectations? So that's something that's been on my mind quite a bit.
For sure. Mr. McKenna, your whole administration pretty much has been in the COVID pandemic, right?
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. That's pretty wild, though. Like, was it different than what you were expecting? Like, was it a complete curveball, or were you just kind of like, this is life now?
I mean, obviously nobody could have expected that. So we had graduation last night, and Tori Williams-Ruffin, who did a phenomenal job with the commencement speech, he mentioned in his commencement speech, we all remember that day when Mr. McKenna came on the PA and said, hey, we're going to have 2 weeks till an extended spring break, and then we'll be back and COVID will be over. And we were off slightly on that.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
So, it's interesting. For some reason, and I don't know why, but those types of like big challenges, I tend to get up for those, and I don't know if it's like an innate thing or I've just been somehow blessed with the ability to say, all right, we've got a big challenge in front of us, and we can break this down into smaller challenges and overcome them and be reasonable about how we do it and things along those lines. But and I think that's just part of being in a community with lots of people. Is there's always going to be challenges in front of you when you work with people.
Yeah.
And it's important to, one, always kind of remain focused on your mission, and secondly, be just to kind of be a good steward of people and help provide them with calm to make sure, let them know, this is going to be okay. And was it perfect? Have the last 3 years been perfect? Absolutely not. But I don't know that any school year is ever perfect, and we'll strive for protection or perfection. And, the thing that Coach Lombardo says all the time is strive for perfection and catch excellence along the way. And I think there were a lot of places where we caught excellence in the last 3 years, and we'll continue to do so. And I want for you guys as the students to have what is a more typical year, but what I mean by typical, this year was very typical, but there was still a lot of anxiety, and it would be great if we could just move to let's have a year we're not all so anxious.
Yeah. Do you guys see a noticeable change in student behavior and how things operate around the school compared to March of 2020?
I have such a different perspective on this because I think we all have very short memories, and I think there is we have a tendency, especially as adults, to go through this exercise of like, well, kids these days and like back in my day and all that stuff like that. And here's the thing: I went to school here. The kids now are so much better than the kids who I went to school with from a cultural standpoint, where we have so much more of a positive culture in terms of the way that we all treat each other. And certainly, are we making mistakes? Yeah, but that's part of growing up. It's like you make a mistake in an environment that is a supportive environment, and we help you learn and grow from that mistake. But I think, personally for me, like I think we have a very, very positive student culture here. I think it's a different culture in some ways than what some private or other Catholic schools are, because I think the society has a vision that we have to be the only way that you can form young men, especially, is you have to be very strict and that's not me at all. And so I think like authenticity is the most important element of leadership. And it would be very, very inauthentic for me to say, like, we are just going to be so buttoned down, because sometimes you lose joy in that. So, like, I would lead with joy before anything else. I think the way that we have navigated, especially the students have navigated the challenges of the pandemic, is to be heralded. And so if there are any changes that I've witnessed, they're more on the positive side than anything.
Yeah.
I would say yes and no. So for my no, to Mr. McKenna's point, I would completely agree with him. I've been here for 14 years, and even in that time, there's been a noticeable shift in our culture that has not changed, even in the pandemic, where we have a community of people, adults and students, who clearly love and care for each other. And I know that, there's always exceptions and people have hard experiences and hard times, but above and beyond, I think this is a community where people feel seen and cared for. And I mean that at the student and the adult level, and students to adults and vice versa. And that's very powerful, and that's been a change that's been a pleasure to see. I think where there are some differences pre-March of the pandemic to now is the little stuff. So when I say the little stuff, there's just little things that can tighten up, because people were it was so important to extend grace and not really be heavy-handed with people in the pandemic, because we have way bigger things to worry about. So whether or not someone's shirt is tucked in, or whether or not they're a minute late to class, was small potatoes, But now that time has passed, let's exceed our expectations. Let's look good when we come to school, because we care about this place. Let's get to class on time because I care about my teacher, because my teacher cares about me. And that's easy stuff to fix. We don't have a bad culture. Our quote unquote bad students are delights. I was just talking to Mr. Merriman about this morning. I love our students because I was what I would refer to as a good bad kid. I got the grades I was supposed to get. I did everything I was supposed to do, but I was kind of an Eddie Haskell on the back, and I got in plenty of trouble. And I think that was all preparation to work here, because the kids who are the knuckleheads who get in more trouble than others, I get those kids and I see their humanity and I understand them. And I think when I talk to them, they feel that. I hope they do. Going to Mr. McKenna's point, I can't BS the way I lead or talk to people. You just heard me swear when I was telling the bat story before we got on the podcast. That's who I am, and it comes out. And I know sometimes it might rub people the wrong way, but I think more often than not, people crave realness and real experiences. And so I'm excited to just kind of bring that real level of respect back in the very small things that are easy to fix and are easy for all of our students to fix, and would understand if we're talking about it this way. Yeah, I should get to class on time because I'm in a relationship with this person and it matters to me. I should say sorry if I made a mistake. I should send an email if I'm not going to turn my homework in on time. Those are just very small human courtesies. They're not cultural issues. They're just things that we need to remind ourselves that we were very good at, and can be even better at in the future.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. So, it is important that we do, like, if you do the small things well, you can enjoy the big things a lot more. And so it is, you can lead a kind of a joy-filled existence and have a joy-filled culture with high standards that are very excellence-focused. And, like Steph said, we were extending a lot of grace in the past couple of years because people were dealing with a lot of anxiety. But I hope, because I got this when I was a student here, I hope after 4 years a student can walk out of here and maybe as an adult, as a coworker, as a friend, as a spouse, can have that training to say, I was really trained to do the little things well, and it has helped me get to the big things. And I think those little things do matter.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of great people in this community have said this, but when you take care of the little things, the big things take care of themselves. And so if you think about, like, and I don't know that you've ever seen any, like, major conflicts in any of your classes, but, like, students who go to next level mistakes, like they might react inappropriately to a teacher or something like that. If they got to class on time, or had reached out about homework, or were just dressed the way we expect everybody to dress, the small conversation that led to the bigger conflict never would have happened in the first place. Right. And so the more we're just holding each other accountable, I'm like Mr. McKenna. I'm not a heavy. I like to, just keep things relational and joyful and happy. But there are times where we just need to hold ourselves accountable, and you can do that in a kind way. Mr. McKenna said this to the students this year, I believe, that the thing about kindness versus, what's the comparative word that you use?
Nice versus kind.
Nice versus kind. Like, kindness is kinship, and I care about you, and I'm going to have a difficult conversation with you because I care enough to have that difficult conversation so you can be the best version of yourself. Nice is easy and lazy. Like, I don't want to bother him. I'm just going to be nice and not bother him. Well, if 1,000 people are not bothering anybody, they're also not holding each other accountable, and we're not exceeding our expectations. Where if, and I know this is true of you, if I'm walking past a student, I just say, hey, can you tuck in your shirt? Can you take off that sweatshirt? Like, can you take out that earring? And it's, yeah, sure. It's like, I don't need to get heavy-handed and mean. It's just, you're not at our current standard. Just get on board and we're cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been talking a lot about the minor infractions of the dress code. Do you guys see any changes in the dress code really differentiating from this year?
I don't think so. Mr. Wallenhorst and I have been talking about that a little bit. I think, and I said this years ago when Mr. Bex was dean, the clearer you make the handbook and the less permutations there are, the easier it is for everybody to be on board. The one thing, and I'm shocked that I'm saying this because I never imagined I would be this guy, but when I was helping with awards day this year, like, the variety of dress was so intense that it did have me questioning hooded sweatshirts. I think hoodies need to go. Outside of that, I think if you're just in a standard eds crew, polo, slacks, and shoes, we're good to go. Mm-hmm. Because part of a dress code, there's a couple of factors that I didn't think of as a student. One is kind of a level of equity. If everybody is in a similar dress code, you don't get, my students are in public school, and there's haves and have-nots everywhere, and sometimes a lack of a dress code can turn into a type of social capital or flex where it's like, well, look what I'm wearing, I have all this Supreme stuff, and you're wearing, like, Old Navy hand-me-downs. And so part of a dress code is for that, and part of a dress code is to represent who we are. I get so proud, like, whenever my wife sees Edsman out in the wild, she always comments on the kinds of students that, come from this place. And I think dressing in a way that just looks nice is a reflection of who we are and what we do here. You know, it's not to be heavy-handed. It's not to bother anybody. It's just to, you know, create an extra level of equity and care for the things that we're doing.
Yeah.
There's so I often look at organizations that are different than schools to understand how do you operate such an excellent culture. And there is a restaurant in Manhattan. It's called 11 Madison Park, which it was named the best restaurant in the world probably in 2017 or 2018. I've never been to the restaurant, but I was first introduced to it through a documentary series on Netflix. And at one part of the documentary series, the chef, whose name is Daniel Hume, he talked about how he forces everybody in the kitchen to shave. And he said, it's not because I don't like beards or people having facial hair. He said, I do that because it's a reminder of intentionality and the importance of intentionality in the work that we're doing. And I think there's a good comparison to what we're doing here. Is, you know, dress code is a reminder of intentionality, and intentionality is important if you're doing important work.
For sure. I know a lot of teachers have gotten upset about this, and I have too a little bit.
I'm livid about it. I don't even know what it is, but I can already tell that I'm going to be very mad.
The lack of dressing up for mass.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I think we do pretty well with that. Because think of how much of a departure that is from our
Dress code.
current dress code. And you know, do you wish everybody would be at 100%? Yeah. Are we perfect at it? No. But I think for the most part, we tend to get better and better with every mass. So, and that's a thing that'll continue to improve too. That takes a little bit of time.
I mean, you go to mass on Sundays and people aren't super dressed up, so I would be interested to know the long list of teachers that are upset about it, because, I mean, you see people in shorts and slides at Sunday mass.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that has kind of complicated how good we look at mass is the intention for blazers, because not everybody has a blazer, and then we get into the blazer rack. You know, there might be conversations to have to just simplify to shirt and tie, and then everybody is in a shirt and tie. We look uniform, we look good. Because I think part of what might make people feel like we don't look good is a lack of intentionality. Like, you know, someone at the last mass was in like a hooded sweatshirt with a blazer on over the hooded sweatshirt. So now that's kind of defeating the intention, and it's just meeting the letter of a law. So I think anytime you're more concerned about the letter of a law as opposed to the spirit of a law is where you can get in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that take. That's great. Okay, so I heard some rumors, right, about next year and
They're true.
about what students have kind of been bringing to Mr. Wallenhorst in particular. I don't know if these have circulated to you guys. Clean beards as a senior privilege. What's the take?
So I would not be cool with that personally. So that's
Yeah,
probably
I'm not
not
looking
going to
for
happen.
that. I don't
Yeah.
know if there's such a thing as an 18-year-old clean beard.
Yeah.
It would be like 3 guys that could have it.
Yeah.
I couldn't grow a beard until I was like 37.
I cannot grow a beard.
And I don't know how clean it is certain days.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think anytime you start to get into the subjective of like what's a clean beard versus a
Kind of exactly what I was talking about with the dress code earlier. Like, if we just say you can wear tennis shoes, an Oxford shirt, a collared shirt that has Ed's logos on it, a polo, like, I mean, there's stuff where it's like, well, you can't wear plaid or you can't wear this. And so I think anytime, like, is this a plaid shirt or is this a check shirt? So, like, once you take the subjectivity out, to Mr. McKenna's point, it's easier for everybody to get on board.
Right.
It's easier if everybody understands.
Yeah.
Like, this is an Oxford shirt. That's not debatable. You could debate its plaidness versus its checkness. Why are we doing that? We have calculus to do.
Right.
You know, like, let's keep the easy stuff easy so we can do the hard and special stuff and devote our energy to that.
Yeah. To what extent is it a plaid shirt?
Yeah, exactly. And to what extent does it matter at all? Like, you know, I have a button-down shirt. I'm clearly trying to look professional and clean. Like, challenge accepted. Let's move on. Let's do some math.
Yeah.
Let's read a book.
Fair, yeah. Turtlenecks have also been
Oh God.
the
For your
immediate-
own good?
Yeah.
Hell no. We're not running a hockey wedding in here.
Part of our
Looking
responsibility
at you,
as
Sully.
adults is to save you from yourself.
Yeah.
And a generation from now,
The thought of you looking at yourselves
In
in
that
that
turtleneck.
photos wearing turtlenecks.
yeah, we're not doing it.
Like, Yeah, not a good idea.
I wore a turtleneck for my second grade school photo, and I still haven't recovered from that. So
There's a junior. He sang last night. His name's escaping right now, but he loves to rock a blazer or suit jacket, a turtleneck, and some bling. He has it on lock. He looks great. The thought of all of you running around with turtlenecks or mock turtlenecks, I feel bad for you already.
the only person who can wear a mock turtleneck in this community is Will Van Wy, and he will be the only one allowed to wear a mock turtleneck moving forward.
Yeah. All right. Well, turtlenecks are definitely
Turtlenecks are not good.
They're
for you.
out. If you have a beard and a turtleneck,
You can break that scoop today on Twitter. There will be no turtlenecks.
This will go on the William
Yeah.
in the Commons,
We will-
Green and Gold Radio,
All turtles will
Instagram.
be sent to the guillotine. Neck free.
That's the quote. That's going to be the caption of the
Yes.
episode. Turtles will be sent to the guillotine.
Stepnowski says, studying ads to begin killing turtles in archaic French model.
and I know we're not cool, but turtlenecks aren't cool either. So let's be real about it.
Yeah. So to finish it off on kind of a light note, golf.
Yeah,
Big golf guys. Right?
Yeah.
What's the best and the worst you've done at golf?
Oh my God, the
I don't know if
best
your
I've
viewers
done.
can see my slides right now.
Yeah, those are dope. The worst I've done is maybe the worst round of golf in the history of man. I'm a roller coaster golfer myself.
Mr. McKenna gets in his head. So Mr. McKenna is probably one of the most talented golfers on staff, but what he'll start doing is counting his score, or like the best way to beat Mr. McKenna on a hole of golf is to bet him $1, because all of a sudden he is lost in the sauce. He's trying to win that $1, and he's not just stepping up to the ball and hitting the ball. So if anybody's playing Mr. McKenna in golf this summer, just bet him $1 a hole. Like, you got to get Lombardo on this podcast and have him tell a story of how he turned an eagle putt into like a double bogey for Mr. McKenna.
He's a
he
mastermind,
has
yeah.
a kryptonite, but he's a very good golfer.
It's amazing. Steph, what's your best?
My worst is my dad was a college golfer and tried to get me into golf when I was a kid, and I resisted, and I was into golf for a little bit, maybe when I was like my son's age, like 6 to maybe 14, and then I didn't touch a golf club for 20 plus years, and then the pandemic hit and I was turning 40 and kind of just became a cliche and just got obsessed. I used to be a runner, and I stupidly ran the New York City Marathon without training and kind of just destroyed my knees in the process, and so I just can't run the way I used to. So golf has fit. I only have stressful hobbies. I tend to only have stressful hobbies. So golf, you can be so much better all the time. That's why it's become an obsession for me. So when I started, I was putting up 110s. I think I put up 118 in like a league tryout round. Now I'm pretty consistently in the low 90s, high 80s, and yeah, I just love it. I like to practice. I enjoy the practice. It's a good way for me to just shut down and stress out about something other than school.
Yeah, fair enough. And you're probably taking over the podcast next year, co-host
You and me, baby.
for the
Oh, you are?
I'm
We're
excited.
getting
Yeah.
like a regular schedule. Like, we're gonna get butts in the seats. Like, this is gonna
Let's
be a thing.
go.
I'm
Yeah.
excited to start a much more accurate and better social media program, something like that.
Probably starting like August. Like, I think our goal, depending on what your summer looks like, is to have our first drop August 1st, and then to decide if it's like a weekly or a bi-monthly.
Yeah, something like that. And then also, I'm planning with Miss Fairfield that IB immersion trip, an IB immersion trip to go somewhere and get a perspective in the less fortunate areas of Cleveland. So that could be fun. Also, might want to do a podcast on
Yeah,
that.
you just broke a scoop to me, so
Yeah.
I'm interested in hearing more about that.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool.
Sweet. Thanks,
Well, thank
Will.
you, gentlemen, for popping on.
Yeah,
Appreciate your
absolutely.
time.
Yeah. All right, have a great summer,
have a
everybody.
great summer,
Don't wear a
everybody.
turtleneck this summer or ever again.
I will play any of you in golf. Just let me know.